My first Giga coaster coming from the manufacturer Bolliger and Mabillard was Orion at Kings Island. It only took one ride on this roller coaster for me to become a die-hard fan. Everything from the drop, speed, and elements made me a fanboy and set me on a mission to ride the other two Giga coasters by the manufacturer. It took only one more year for me to score a ride on Fury 325, the current record holder for being the tallest, fastest, and longest roller coaster that utilizes a traditional lift hill. Fury 325 became my new #1 roller coaster and held onto this record for a solid year. Even as it was knocked off that high pedestal, I continued to admire this amazing roller coaster and everything it had achieved in the industry. After a few years of failed planning, I finally made it across the Canadian border and over to Canada's Wonderland, the home to the original Giga coaster by B&M. Even though the park was debuting a brand new multi-launching powerhouse of a roller coaster called AlpenFury, the ride I was most anticipated to experience was Leviathan. Opening in 2012, Leviathan features a height of 306 feet, track length at 5,486 feet, and a max speed of 92 miles per hour or 148.1 kilometers per hour. These stats, though not technically groundbreaking, were still quite intimidating even in 2012. As of this recording, there are only 9 roller coasters in operation across the globe that reach a height of 300 feet, soon to be 10, but that will be for another day. Before I continue with today's review, please do me a huge favor by clicking on that like button, assisting me with the YouTube's algorithm. Newcomers to my channel that love roller coasters like Leviathan, be sure to follow. I break my reviews down into 5 categories, starting off with presentation. As you approach Canada's Wonderland, the first roller coaster you should notice is Leviathan. It towers over the park and wraps around the entire entrance area to the park. Similar to Fury 325, guests have to walk under the threshold of Leviathan to make it through security and into the park. It's an eye-catcher for sure, but I will say this. Legacy Cedar Fair really learned from Leviathan and improved the entrance for Carowinds tenfold, with how that coaster dives down and around guests entering the park. But let's get back to Leviathan. Even though it's not as impressive as Fury 325, it's nothing to scoff at either. Its impressive teal color track and light blue colored supports really pop over the skyline. To speak of the trains, I love the giant eyes painted on the Zero car, making the train look like it's a mythical Leviathan creature. Weirdly enough though, the train dives through a small tunnel at the bottom of the first drop. There's also another set of eyes attached to the front of that tunnel, so it's like Leviathan creature is diving through another creature. I don't know. Honestly, I'm thinking too hard about this. It's all there because it looks cool, even if it doesn't make complete sense. Outside of the cool looking ride sign and tunnel, there is virtually no theming on this attraction. Again, with the other reviews I made on Canada's Wonderland's roller coasters, theming isn't really the focus of the park, so I'm not holding that against the ride. Of all the Gigas I know in operation, the only one that has some sort of theming to it would have to be Orion at Kings Island. The view at the top of that hill allows you to look out far over the horizon, but most likely you'll be staring at the cars sitting in the parking lot. All in all, presentation is done well enough to earn Leviathan a score of 9 in this category. Ride intensity. Leviathan starts off with a slow-moving turnaround that sends you to the base of the 306-foot lift hill. After quickly climbing to the top, riders dive over this nearly 90-degree drop that, just like both Orion and Fury 325, feels like it lasts forever, delivering lots of excellent floater airtime. At the bottom, the coaster climbs right back up into a sweeping turn to the right. Leviathan now dives back down and stays lower to the ground, performing a speed hill that turns into a slight dive to the left that leads into a giant airtime hill. Both the speed hill and airtime hill deliver tons of airtime and are amongst the best parts of the ride. Next, the ride performs a giant sweeping turnaround element that sends you back in the direction of the first drop. The ride stays low to the ground once again and performing a banked turn to the right that leads into another giant airtime hill. The coaster now performs one more banked hill that turns to the left, popping you back up into the very long brake run. It's not quite as obnoxious as the one found on an Orion, but it's definitely quite long and has spawned many debates of which roller coaster has the longest brake run. Leviathan, which could have been in danger of feeling like another hyper coaster, changes up the formula by introducing some low to the ground height speed elements, with a couple larger elements that really bring out the airtime. I love the variety on Leviathan. I think its pacing is spot on. Prior to my first ride, I thought that Orion was easily going to be the better of the two, but after one ride, I knew that Leviathan was superior. Heck, in some ways, it's even going to give Fury 325 a run for its money, but maybe that's a good debate for another video. Those who are looking for speed, airtime, and some strong positive G-forces will find it all on Leviathan, which is why I'm giving this coaster another 9 score, this time in ride intensity. Fun factor: B&M has really mastered the art of the Giga coaster. They are by far their best design, boasting excellent forces, great elements, and all-around good pacing. I couldn't imagine anyone riding this roller coaster without having a giant smile on your face. These roller coasters by nature are here to thrill and provide the funnest roller coaster experience out there, starting with that first massive drop that feels like it lasts forever. It's a moment that never gets old, just solid floater airtime as you plummet 300 feet. From there on out, the coaster doesn't have a single dull moment. You're either flying through a bank turn or high speeds or experiencing some good old-fashioned floater airtime on those 2 giant hills. My only gripe I have in this category would be their operations. Not to say that it's terrible, but for a roller coaster that runs 3 trains, these Giga coasters are designed to be capacity monsters. For some reason, there seems to be a longer than desired lag with every dispatch. The ride doesn't utilize a single rider line, but the staff do their best to fill every seat, maybe to the detriment of their dispatch times. On my first ride, I was a single rider and the ride ops pulled me out of the queue as I was standing at the bottom of the station. It was somewhat awkward making my way through the rest of the queue, and even the train was being held up. I wasn't the only one who experienced this, as I saw it happen multiple times prior to me riding and after. Instead of worrying about filling every seat, maybe just focus on getting those trains out the station. Granted, the best dispatch is when every seat is full and the trains are moving, but don't hold up the ride over a single rider. Even with my pettiness about operations, I'm still going to award Leviathan a 10 score in the fun factor. Originality. At the time of its opening, there were only 3 other Giga coasters in operation, so the concept of a ride breaking that 300-foot mark was still relatively new. With that said though, I believe that many of us were a little puzzled with the concept of building a 300-foot roller coaster in a park where you already have a somewhat similar hypercoaster at the opposite end of the property. Up until now, I mean, there was Cedar Point with Magnum XL200 and Millennium Force, but I think the biggest reason that we didn't look at that as the same was Magnum XL200 was built by Aero and Millennium Force by Intimate Amusement Rides. Well, after everyone started to get their rides in on the Leviathan, the differences between Behemoth and this Giga coaster are pretty apparent. One focuses more on airtime hills, while the other zooms in on speed and pacing. Now, if we judge it by the POV, even though Leviathan is just a tad longer than Behemoth, it wraps up its layout almost 20 seconds faster. If you really want to get technical, I think there is a solid argument to say that they are still basically the same type of coaster. Even B&M classifies their Giga coasters as hyper coaster models. The way I look at it is like when a park has multiple wooden roller coasters. They still have the same type of train, similar feeling, but will do things differently with a layout which allows them to have their own identity. Which, reverting back to Leviathan, definitely has its own identity. Leviathan earns an 8 in originality. Ride smoothness. Even though I'm at odds with B&M as of late with how rough their newer models tend to be, Leviathan doesn't suffer from this fate. It's a super smooth ride with comfortable restraints that is easily to marathon all day long. Even when I sat out on a wheel seat, I never noticed any rattle. Sure, you could tell me that the wheel was getting worn from operating in the hot sun, but it still provided a butter smooth ride. I'm really perplexed, though, that the same manufacturer could build a 300-foot coaster that's incredibly smooth, but then 10 years later make a smaller, more inferior roller coaster feel like it's 30 years older than Leviathan, but I digress. Leviathan gets a perfect 10 score in ride smoothness. Alright, the final tally for Leviathan comes to 9.2, which I would say is a great to excellent score. Leviathan was built to please, and that's exactly what it accomplishes. Outside of dropping millions of extra dollars into theming, there's nothing more you could do to this ride that would make it better, because it's the best of what you would expect. When it comes to my personal score, Leviathan belongs amongst the other 10 rated coasters. This ride basically has everything I want out of a star attraction. Now, the big question you might be wondering is how does it stack against the other Giga coasters? I'm still mulling this out in my head, but honestly, it's definitely one of the better ones. I think most are prone to put Fury 325 higher than Leviathan just because it's taller and faster, but they share a lot of great similarities. If you ask me, Leviathan is the most underrated Giga coaster, and I hope to change that persona. Well, that's gonna do it for today's review. Until next time, this is Extreme Thrills.